Welcome to Biz Bites, brought to you by Com Together, helping businesses like yours build their brand through telling amazing stories to engage and grow audiences on multiple platforms. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Biz Bites. And the reason I say special episode, it's because I've got a long-term colleague joining me today. Daryl has been an integral partner of my product, Better Biz. And those of you that are familiar with it will understand it's a TV-style hosted program. And Daryl has been the production partner that I've been working with on that for the longest time. He has a couple of different elements to his businesses, so I thought we've got to get him on the program and explore it a little bit further. So, Daryl, firstly, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And I guess I'm going to treat you like every other guest. And even though I know this, why don't you do us a favor and introduce both of your businesses?
Both of the businesses. Oh, well, that's a bit of a challenge. But I suppose I've been a video producer for now, probably going on. Now I can't quite work it out, but it's getting closer to 40 years than 35 years. Put it that way. Wow. So a long time now, and I started off pretty much in the TV side of the game and working and helping develop television programs in Channel 9 and a few other places like that, making TV style documentaries and then also it was working with a non-profit as well. So we were a small production unit and got to know all the things about the tools there, and then started into my own business after a period of time doing that. And so that's basically one huge part of my business that I can just do. What do you say? I could do it blindfold, So it's a great skill set to have, and I love working with businesses to come up with creative ways to put together a story, to put it together professionally, and to make it look like or all those sort of things that we talk about when we talk about broadcast quality, but to do it in a way that's actually, I suppose, value conscious or budget friendly. Doesn't mean that it's as cheap as chips, but it means that you can do it for a quarter of the price of what you would if you were working with a broadcast, normal broadcast crew, that kind of thing. So that's a big part of the business. And the other part of the business is kind of, well, it's not part of that business, but another part of my life has been working with people and working with, I suppose, partly with a spiritual sort of a connection, but also looking at coaching and the psychology of people. And that's where the business around regenerative leadership has come from. And that is really about helping leaders see a new way of doing business, a new way of being in business, in a way that actually regenerates the planet instead of just takes from it, and in a way that regenerates people instead of taking from them, and a way that actually obviously regenerates and builds profits without kind of finding that you're folding because you're too nice and too kind, or whatever it is, that some people think of in that's side of the field. So yeah, it's working with what kind of leader would you need to be able to contribute to the people that you're working with alongside with your staff, and also to obviously to your customers, but also to the planet. So what would that look like as a leader? And so I work and help develop leaders in that kind of area.
I love that, because both, even though you said they're not related, they are related, because they are basically both about storytelling. And it's just different aspects of how you bring that story. So I 100% want to come back to that, but I want to delve a little bit into your story first of all. So you obviously pretty much the career started off in video TV, right? So was that always the dream, and where did that come from? Where did that start off with?
I can remember. I can remember walking out of a picture theatre as a teenager, probably might have been 15 or 16 or somewhere around there, and staring at the night sky, looking at the stars above. And I'd just come out of, I think it was Close Encounters of a Third Kind, I think. It was,
Oh yes, love
yeah.
that movie.
And I can just, like, there was kind of a deep feeling within me as I came out of that, being fascinated with the world beyond and all of that sort of thing. And then the thing that sat with me was this was the power of a story to kind of generate this bigger thinking about the world and the planet and all of that kind of thing. And it was just done with pictures, music, and sound, So it was and I thought, I want to do that. I want to be able to tell stories, to be able to use the effects and understand how you use music to tell a story, or to bring emotion to things, and yeah, all of that kind of stuff, and use pictures. I used to be my very first job was working in a camera shop, and that's because I love to take photographs and the art of a photograph and the nice, clear, sharp things. I think part of the sharpness of photographs was because I was pretty much blind, so I love seeing crisp lines and the nice effects that you can get with photos, as opposed to painting a Picasso or a Monet style where it's kind of all a bit blurry.
Yeah, I totally relate to that, and it's funny, even going back to Close Encounters. Look, I'm no aficionado as far as Academy Awards and things are concerned, but that was certainly, from my recollection, was a sort of a revolutionary movie in the sense of the way that it was filmed, not only the subject matter, but the way it was filmed, and it really drew you in. It's one of those few movies that, and I'm not sure that I've seen it more than a couple of times, to be brutally honest, but I remember it vividly. And I remember watching it early on, and I remember watching it several years later, and it still holds up in its own way, and certainly very iconic. And if there's anyone's listening and hasn't watched the movie, do yourself a favor and go and watch the movie, because it really is an iconic way of not only filming, but the storyline and the way it tells stories. So I can totally understand the impact that sort of had, and the way it's transferred across to different things, and that idea of getting clarity in the storytelling and process, and which is obviously what you're alluding to with the photos as well. It's such it's an art, and I think it's one of the things that's irked me, and I'm sure it does you as well, is that since the mobile phone that started having cameras in your pocket, there was a feeling that everybody could be a photographer and everyone could be a videographer. But the truth is that it is really an art form. There's such a big difference between fluking a good picture, between being a good photographer or videographer, and being a great one. And I truly think that there is not enough credit is given to people who, like yourself, who do such an amazing job in that space. But there must be a degree of frustration that people's thinking around that.
There is for sure, and I get frustrated with seeing some lack of understanding of some of the tools of the craft, or some of the storytelling tools and conventions, I suppose, that have been established in filmmaking. And you can see quite clearly that these guys now that might be able to take a photograph and now have gone on and pressed the movie button on their digital still camera, and say that they can make movies now or videos, that you can see quite clearly that they haven't done any study on the way to craft a film, and they can breaking conventions all over the place. Yeah, that's a bit frustrating. So but you find out that people they work it out when they take their own one and they listen to it back. And oh, why is it so bad? Why is my picture dark? Why can't I hear myself? Well, I can talk to you now, and it sounds great. But it can sound really crap when you when you do it just with the phone out, and it doesn't sound the same. It sounds like you're doing it in a toilet often. So there's a whole lot of technology that goes in to make it look easy, and it's knowing about that and knowing how you do that and bring it all together that I suppose is some of the finer things about the craft that elude people who just think, oh, yeah, just point the camera and go. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's that old adage, isn't it? Which is true in all parts of business. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of tools out there at the moment which do a disservice to great storytelling, because they're there to make life easier, and I won't name any of those tools. And some of them, they have a place for certain things, but often when it comes to the really professional looking things, that utilizing someone who's knows how to tell a story and to make it look authentic for that particular brand is so important and such a great differentiator in the market. I mean, like me, I'm sure you've seen so many corporate videos or business videos that just make you cringe for so many different reasons. Again, it's why we created the Better Biz format, because it was really trying to cut through and do all those things that you've talked about in terms of making it affordable and great storytelling. But I wanted to ask you about some of the stories that you've been a part of over the years. Are there really memorable stories that stand out for different reasons?
Not really sure. There's a lot that a lot of them are corporate stories, and so you kind of there is great satisfaction in finishing a story, and this is for me. You just tie it up in a bow and you just tweak it and tweak it and tweak it until it's you couldn't do it any better. The music's just perfect, the graphics just seeing and match to a brand, and then it comes through. I did a series, so if we look, instead of one video, there was a series of videos I did a couple of years ago, which I really enjoyed, and it was around the country, and we picked a number of customers of this big roofing brand. They make roofing and cladding for houses and things, and we went to their customers, and we interviewed them, and we filmed around their premises, looked at some of the work that they'd been doing, and just pulled those together into nice little 2-minute stories. And there's a lot of work. There's probably a good week's work in just pulling together that 2-minute story, and then all the organisation that went on beforehand to make sure that it fitted into calendars and things. And they came together really well. So it was really nice to be able to. What I see it as is being true to the person's story that it's a little bit like these things where you're trying to help the person tell their own story, but help them. You pull out all the stuff that doesn't help the story. So you pull out that bit. No, that doesn't add to the story. That doesn't build the story. That doesn't help us understand what you do more. That doesn't understand. If that doesn't help us understand how you felt about that little bit, right, we'll take that bit out. And that's the editing process, and I really quite enjoy that as well. Yeah. So there's some good ones like that.
And I totally understand where you're coming from, because certainly in the early part of my career, in training part, I remember lugging some big cameras on my shoulders. I'm sure you've done that. Yeah. And I certainly remember sitting in the editing suite, particularly when I was working in TV news. And whilst today we've become even more aware of the pressures of time, people recording a lot more videos and making them succinct and to the point, because people's attention span is so short, which is sad but true. And it's interesting being part of that editing process, because I know when I used to oversee the recording of a lot of news breaks that you would see during the day. And news breaks have in those days, it was about 45 seconds, I think. And once you eliminated the intro bit of music and outro bit of music promoting when the bulletin was going to be, you were left with not a lot. And it's fascinating to try and get the words, the pictures, and as you say, the music. Whilst in news, music isn't as big an element, certainly when you move out of the news space, music can just completely change the way you do things. And I think there's a lack of understanding and appreciation of how involved that whole process actually is. Because as you say, to create 2 minutes of perfect video can be several days in the making.
Yes, no, it's definitely a long one. Another project that I did for 5 or 6 years was a national awards show, and that was another traveling around the country. It's the way I've got to travel around the country, actually. It's the only way, but it's good. Like, you get to point at things. And this is an electrical contractors awards show. And so in each state there was an association, and we'd go around and they'd nominate probably 3 or 4 projects across 9 categories. So they had, so in each state, then I'd be filming, but from 12 up to about 20 different projects, and I'd travel around. And what we'd do is we had a whole process. I had it really down to a fine art, so we could get around it quick and do it therefore cost effectively. But also in the editing, that I'd make sure that I got all my shots. And normally for each of those sorts of things, you'd spend half a day on each project. But I got it down to a system where I could actually, the technical system, I could actually carry in my between my a backpack kind of thing and one handbag. And then that was kind of, I could get on and off a plane quick, so I didn't have to go through pick up a bag, suitcase or anything. I could get on site and I would be able to film to the script, which was prepared beforehand. So we made sure we had our script done, and I could do that within an hour at each location. And then I could do about 6 or 7 of those in a day instead of 1 or 2, which a conventional approach would take us. So that was a bit of fun trying to engineer that all together, getting all that together, and quite satisfying when you see you've hit the deadline and there it is. It goes out on the screen, and they've all had a wonderful night, with all these little great little bits of video up there. Yeah. And
I think there's a couple of things there. There's the technology part is amazing these days, and being able to do that. Back in my old days and learning how to splice tape. I certainly remember that in working.
Yeah, I remember that
to the ABC. You'd sit in there, splice tape, and I remember at university recording a documentary, and we managed to change. We were looking to change the tense of a word. It was something that was ending in ed, and we just wanted it to finish on the normal version of that. I can't remember the word, but what I do remember is we somehow managed to get effectively the E out and not the D, which was quite mind-boggling that we did at the time. But those days it's so much easier now in technology and doing those things. But getting back to the storytelling, I think that must be the interesting thing. You've got to see things and experience things that you wouldn't otherwise, right? So getting that perspective on, as you say, those electrical contractors and things. It's so interesting to be able to get that bird's eye view on something and just be there as a visual and experience in that and be on location. There's a buzz around that, isn't there?
There's a whole variety in this, and some people, that they've talked to me when it comes up to making a video. Oh, but have you done this particular kind of video? I want to see this particular kind of video that you've done in your reel. I need to know that you can do our video. And the interesting thing is, I can do any video, because it's like, this is a little bit like coaching as well. You don't have to be an expert in the person's problem, okay? And then in the person's area of expertise, or you don't have to be an expert like an electrical contractor to be able to tell their story. All you need to do is to be able to ask the right questions and to point the camera, and then actually put it together, knowing the structure of how a story works. Make sure that you've got that all and that the communication flows smoothly. That's where my expertise was in that and is in that particular area. And the same in coaching. It's the structure of how you resolve an issue. It's not actually expertise in the problem that's being faced, if that makes sense. So that's quite interesting. And then as you go around, yes, there's such a variety of different types of businesses that you're going, and you go, okay, as long as I can ask the right questions, then I can focus on the right things and help them tell their story. So you're facilitating the story that they're trying to get across and helping them to tell a better story in a way that they never would be able to do without expertise of the story of the video storyteller in that sense. Yeah.
And I think that's an important aspect, really, is that having experienced so much from an observational point of view, that you can see the stories behind how things are put together. And often it does take someone who is an independent eye to be able to understand the power of what's there and be able to prod a little bit further into things. And I'm forever fascinated by why people do what they do. And I suppose it's probably a good cue to ask you that, because I know we talked about from going back to the movie theater days and things, but what did your parents do? What did your grandparents do? Was there any linkage between what you're doing and what they were doing?
Well, my parents, my father he started off as a landscape gardener, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if that's interesting or not. Anyway, I think he started with an idea of going to farming, then it moved to landscape gardening. Then he became a trade unionist, like he was a trade union leader. But he, on the side, he was quite an artist. So he would be painting, doing pointillism and stuff, and then he'd be playing the flute, learning. He'd self-taught on the flute, and then he also had his own little radio shows that he would occasionally do as well as being a kind of a lay preacher. So he would help out with the preaching.
Storytelling's in the blood, right? Because even landscape gardening is effectively just telling a story in a garden.
Yeah, it's quite creative. Yeah, just how yeah.
I'm not sure about how the trade union bit fits into that equation, but I'm sure there is a linkage in that storytelling as well.
Well, I think that's the people focus, and how you really you want to get be an advocate for people. So and advocate for the worker in that sense. And I think that's me. I'd love to be an advocate for people in helping them tell their stories in that sense, helping them to be able to tell the right story at the right time, to help them build their lives, to build their ability to transform in whatever way that is, with their businesses or their life. Yeah.
And it is, and it probably brings us back to where you're going, and as you're describing this other arm to the business, or this other business that you've got in working with people very directly and bringing those things out in them. And I think it's a really powerful idea, and it's one that those that bother to spend the time and want to focus on it realize how much potential there is. And I pity those who gloss over it, to be honest, because we are, as humans, forever fascinated by people's stories, and it's what we relate to. I think you and I hit it off from day one, and it was as much about sharing some of these stories that we've sort of touched on a little bit today, but that's what makes us human and what makes us relatable. Otherwise, we'd all just be clicking for whoever is the best and not really worry about that human contact. And I think you and I at the front of human, that human element, and trying to bring that story out. How open do you find people are to doing that? Do you have to push it?
Oh, look, there's always an element of pushing, because psychologically, we want to stay safe and we want to stay, comfortable. We love comfort, and comfort is that thing that drags us back into the sand. So this is really, it is really just, it is gently pushing and teasing in some ways, but to pull the story out, but also to challenge to go just a little bit further. And so I find that there's great value in doing that, but doing it in a way that isn't presumptuous and isn't gratuitous, shall we say. It's a way that actually, because we know that if we go just a little bit deeper, it's going to be a better story for it. And it actually reveals, as you would talk about, that authentic part of the story. It's not just a cliched, top surface level. You can dig in a bit deeper, and then we can actually connect as humans to that story, and we can go, that's interesting. Like, I'm engaged now. I really like that. Yeah,
it's really interesting that people are often scared about it, or it maybe scared's not always the right word. I think people believe that their story is nothing special and therefore not worth telling. But I think, as even we just spoke about, about your father and about things that happen, watching the movie in when you were younger. Everyone's got a story, and those stories are just, they draw us in. And they make us want to align with those people. And I think that's really at the core of it. We all have to do business with people all the time. And why not do it with people that we enjoy being part of? Because they're more likely to get us, and they're more likely to deliver for us because they understand who we are. But you have to take the time to not only watch and listen to their story, but you have to deliver your own. And I think that's the important thing is that getting out there and delivering your own story is just super critical. And it should be, it's not enough emphasis is taught about it. I find it amazing that I've spoken to so many professional business leaders over the last, 30 years or more, and how often people understand the idea of story, but don't really understand story.
Yeah. Oh, it's challenging because, you can study story structure and things like that, and that can be really helpful. And then to actually know, I think it's what's his name, Campbell? There's basically only one story, like the hero's journey kind of thing.
Yeah.
And once you can find out where your life works in with those elements of the basic story, the great mythical story that is, that we can identify with so much, then that can really help. But the story is great, and I think it is that authentic part. It is people connecting with people, and it is therefore just going along and revealing a bit more of that humanity and the struggle. And I think we all like to learn, and we learn through stories. We learn best through stories, and also by falling over. So our own stories of when we fell over and then we got up again and we got on with it. That's actually, we like hunger for knowing, for understanding that and going, oh, how did they do that? What was that like? And okay, yeah, right. I got that now. Yeah. And so that actually helps us to understand how life works more, how other people's experiences of where they fell down, where they got up again, where they conquered the dragon, where they climbed the mountain, and where they faced their fears, and all of that kind of stuff. And we can't get enough of that as human beings, I think.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because we don't think about it, but really from the youngest age, we're trading stories. If you think about if you watch kids in preschool, they're, and from there up, they're trading stories about, this is what happened on the weekend. This is what my mum said. This is what I saw on TV. This is true. This is not true. And sometimes they're making it up, of course, at that age, and other times not. But it's this endless trading of stories. How do we make new friends and lifelong partners? It's because we meet them and we start trading stories. And if those stories become relatable, put a smile on our faces, then we're going to want more of it. And that's how relationships build. And business is no different to that. You know, we end up, the secret to getting lots of good referrals is because you've built up terrific relationships with your existing clients and suppliers and partners, and that they have great stories to tell about you, and it's in the front of their mind. So they're wanting to share those stories, and other people are going, well, I want something of that. I want to be part of that story as well. Movies have taught us so much. I'm a big believer in the fact that the media in its broadest sense leads business. It really, we've all become, each business has become a little media conglomerate in the way that we have to distribute information and things. And the way that we have to tell stories is being led by what media does so well. And I'm including film and TV and, not just news and social media in that. It's huge. And the more that you take the time as a business to engage with that, the better off you're going to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it is quite incredible. And we are, I think, even there's a few business specialists, and those at the top of the tree that like to tell everyone how to do everything, and who are good at it as well. They're basically telling us a lot that in fact every business owner in a way needs to be a marketing specialist in a way. They need to be the marketing and marketing is the telling of the story of the business and the story of how their business meets a need and all of that kind of thing. But then that's the content. They're the face of it, or whether they're the face or not, but that's the part of it. The story of the business is the important thing. It's the delivery is assumed. You've got to be able to deliver, what you say you do, but it's actually the telling of the story on top that is it needs to be the specialty and the thing that is focused on within a business of how they do business. So it's a big deal. This, as you say, that storytelling part of it.
Now, Daryl, you and I both know we could talk for a very long time. So we're going to, just before we wrap it up, I like to ask all of my guests this question. Is there an aha moment that your clients have with you that you wish others kind of knew in advance? So perhaps there'd be more people signing up to be part of both of your businesses. Is there something where you commonly see people go, oh yeah, I get it?
I think for me, sometimes it's only on the other side in some ways. When they work out what a difference a good story is, like a professionally told one, versus what they were expecting. Often you'll get a business that would say, well, we just need a video. We just need a video. And there's no thought into what's the intention of it. What do you want people to feel when they and do and act? How do you want them to act when they've finished watching the video? How are we going to structure it to maximize that? And then being able to then deliver them a piece and for them to be absolutely delighted and know that this is the piece that's going to communicate their story so well. Getting to them at the point where they get, yes, this is what I want. This is what I wanted all along. And I get one client, he says, he looked at my video and he says, this is how we do it. This is how we do it now. And okay, well, good. Beforehand, it would have just been, some basic thing that they thought they knew how to do,
I think for those of us that are in the creative space, we totally understand that it's that emotion and that how people feel at the end is such a big thing. And often people don't have that vision. And I think there's a trust that has to go into the people that are leading that creative process. I know you do an amazing job with it. And I love the fact that we get the opportunity to work together so consistently. And anyone wants to find out more about Better Biz, of course, they can come and talk to me. But Daryl, we're going to share all of your details and information in the story notes of this. Thank you for being a tremendous guest on Biz Bites. And, we really appreciate hearing about your story. and talking about story.
Thank you, Anthony. It's been a pleasure to be here.
And we look forward to having your company again on another edition of BizBytes coming soon. BizBytes is brought to you by ComTogether for all your marketing needs so you can build your brand, engage audiences on multiple platforms. Go to comtogether.com.au, follow the links to book an appointment for a free consultation.